my name is Lisa Banks, and the date is Thursday, the 24th of October 2024. My background is in fine art, painting, particularly in music and in art therapy. So how does this impact the way I see the world and create art? Well, I drew and painted the human figure once I learned how to manipulate the art materials adequately enough. And this was all possible from about the age of 14. Then I sketched my family members a lot. I learned a great deal more at the life class, which I attended from 16 to 18. And at this time discovered galleries and became fascinated with introspective artists like Stanley Spencer, David Hockney, Francis Bacon, Egon Schiele, Edvard Munch. So the key word is introspection for me, and also expressionism. I went on to art school, and the struggle was to define yourself through your work. And those formative experiences took me into the library a lot, the Welsh landscape, and to different sorts of artists like Ivan Hitchens, David Bomberg, Frank Auerbach and Leon Kossoff. These artists were all firmly rooted in the British Expressionism. And I enjoyed the adventure involved in this search for what was called by Bomberg the spirit of the mass. That is the engagement with the act of painting itself. And this, to me, felt like the way to go in the world. And, since then, like rap music, you can trace its roots back to jazz, and you get different subgenres or leaves sprouting from the essential root that's jazz. My essential root is expressionism, and from that root there comes all the different sorts of subgenres, post-expressionism, postmodern expressionism. Art with a multiplicity of meanings, and essentially for me, in my work, those meanings that challenged traditional form and narrative are important. So the next question, did your upbringing prompt a specific reference point within your work? Is your work informed by certain concepts or themes from your childhood background, socioeconomic status, and where you lived or were raised? Definitely, yes. I trained as a painter between the ages of 18 and 25 on and off, but from a very early age I took an interest in art and music. I fell in love with the sound of the flute as a child, and probably I was influenced by 1970s music. Albums like Bridge Over Troubled Water, the sound of the flute, the panpipes. Music was my first way into another world, and the world of the imagination. Music was how I learned poetry. Tubular Bells, I heard this album when I was about 8 years old. This was another way into the imagination. I was brought up in the 1970s in an era and area where traditional mining communities had been evolving for 200 years, since the Industrial Revolution. So equal pay and equality between the sexes was still very difficult. The community I was brought up in was rooted in conventional relationships. But I did have two aunties who forged their own way outside of conventional expectations. At the time, I could talk about them, but yeah, they were important influences in my childhood, where I was raised. So, who are my biggest influences? That is the difficult question. I have many influences, but generally the biggest one, the key word, if you like, is feminism. And so I have connected with those artists, especially those with a self-confessional style or approach, whose work I feel creates a connection with and empathy for the human experience, especially the female human experience. So artists like the musician Joni Mitchell, Laurie Anderson, visual artists like Tracey Emin and Paula Rego are some of the few influences in my work. So what am I focusing on right now? More recent images have explored a metaphor between the inside and outside. So I've been using the image of a woman wrapped in a cloak or a blanket, and now I'm working on some images called Ocarina, which explore inside and outside spheres. There's often a windowsill between the inside and the outside. What is the biggest challenge of being an artist? Well, that is finding your audience or getting your art seen. It's not easy to do that, but it's also fun, and it's also a challenge and a good way of using your problem-solving skills. What advice would you give to your younger self? I would say to my younger self, you're doing really well. Just relax and enjoy doing your art. Have I ever tried any unconventional mediums or techniques? I tried collage, where I mix different papers, fabrics on quite a large scale, and use different collage textures to explore the edges of objects, of interior scenes. I use paint scrapers in a similar way. I use unconventional things like sharp implements like nails, scraping back areas of paint. This sort of creates a painted surface with drawn elements into areas. I do listen to music. I don't like silence unless I've got a headache, but I do listen to my playlist, and I've got an extensive playlist, and I've got radio in the studio, so I usually flip between the two. But yes, that's intrinsic to get your mind into a creative place. The best reaction someone has had to my work is to showing an interest in it. An artist's work is an ongoing story. It never ends, even when the artist has gone. So I hope that people can identify with my artwork and that they empathise with the content. That would be great. I do have some artwork on show at the moment at Wisbech Art Gallery and the Foxyard Art Gallery in Stowmarket. If you wanted to visit their websites and have a look. Otherwise, I have a website, www.lisabanksart.com, Instagram at lisabanks72, Facebook at Lisa Banks Artwork.